Dragons have been long a source of fascination and wonder in mythology and popular culture, and served as a rich source of experience points and gear in many video games. And in this video, we will explore the concept of realistic dragons with human-like intelligence, and the implication that they would have when such a dragon would be ruling over his own kingdom. Because if dragons possess the intellect and power to exert control over their surroundings, it is very likely that they would become the dominant force in their very realms. And therefore the first thing I want to talk about is the dragon's value as a military unit, because they would represent the ultimate military force. With their immense size, strength, and fire-breathing capabilities, they would instill fear in the hearts of adversaries. Their ability to dominate the skies would give them a strategic advantage, enabling them to launch aerial assaults and do reconnaissance missions. This military might would make the dragons the natural rulers and defenders of their kingdoms. Their skills would also make it quite hard for assassins to backstab their king, granting the realm much more stability, to say the absolute least. Though the assassin might still be able to play it off as a joke if his assassination attempt fails, pretending to be the new court jester, telling his scaly majesty that, "Oh no, it's just a prank, see the court scribes over there, your majesty," before being eaten alive. But I digress. Throughout history, kingdoms have often relied on powerful military forces to provide protection in exchange for resources and allegiance from their subjects. And in the case of a dragon-ruled kingdoms, dragons would demand vast amounts of resources, not for the court or for some build-up of an army, but primarily in the form of meat for sustenance, for themselves and their family. Their colossal appetite would necessitate large-scale livestock production in their immediate vicinity, making the kingdom's agricultural industry vital to meet the dragon's demands. Additionally, dragons may have an affinity for precious metals such as gold or platinum, which would further drive resource extraction and trade within the kingdom. Forests, which could be used to block the visions of a dragon, would likely be burned down in order to get more pastures, and to make sure that there aren't any large-scale areas where a large military force, possibly armed with scorpion bolts, could hide. Next, we should talk about the effect that dragons would have on their human subjects. I mean, even today, they are seen as a symbol of power and might and glory in mythology. And this would hold true in the dragon-ruled kingdom as well. Dragons would be revered as symbols of strength and majesty, and their presence alone would ensure the loyalty and obedience of the kingdom's human inhabitants, since they would be seen almost as living gods, and not just as plum, perfumed dudes that will be chased out and captured within their own royal palace by fishwives, which incidentally has just happened in France. But as we Germans say, it is not all gold that glitters, something that should also be thought to young dragons, because while dragons would wield immense power, ruling over a kingdom would present its own challenges and limitations. Dragons' vast appetites would require efficient resource management and agriculture to sustain their needs, and the needs of their inhabitants as well. The kingdom's infrastructure would also need to be adapted to accommodate the dragon's size and his mobility, including suitable habitats, nesting grounds, and feeding areas, not only for itself of course, but also for his family. Now, the dragon, giving its ability to inspire awe with just existing, would, much like German kings of old, travel around and hold court where he happens to be. This form of rulership would be incredibly effective, since again, dragons can fly and are not reliant on a horse. So with hard work, dedication, and a lot of traveling, dragons would hold their kingdom together. And aside from just frightening, intimidating and threatening the populace into submission, the interactions between dragons and humans would also be of great importance. Humans may serve as advisors, diplomats, or even companions to the dragon, especially if the dragon can polymorph into a man or woman. The relationship between dragons and humans thus would be a delicate balance of power, fear, and voluntary cooperation, with both parties benefiting from each other's strength and numbers. Human ingenuity, resourcefulness, and adaptability could complement the dragon's dominance, thus creating a harmonious dynamic within the kingdom's upper class. Also, half-dragons, or half-donkey dragons if you are a particular fan of a certain ogre, would be perhaps act as the nobility. Those who have dragon blood would be seen as destined to rule, and half-dragon warriors could probably defeat a few dozen of human knights. They would be the upper class, and thanks to their dragon blood, they would see themselves more as dragons, lording over the peasantry, instead of fellow humans oppressed by a gigantic fire-breathing beast. So in short, while the term Dragon Kingdom might awaken certain associations with a certain dragon girl and her demeanor from some Fire Emblem games, realistic dragon kingdoms would be much more tyrannical and extractive, rather than attractive. Now, these stratified military dictatorships would likely also have one great disadvantage: their stability. I know, given that we are nowadays as stable as IKEA furniture built with prayers and duct tape, well, mainly prayers and prayers to acquire that instead of an instruction manual. Too much stability might seem an odd thing today, but with great stability there's no need to invent, to advance, and to produce new weapons or bring forth new types of warfare. After all, you have a dragon and his offspring on your side. But not all kingdoms or trade republics might be so fortunate as to be protected by a dragon, and they might to seek to replicate the dragon fire. And therefore the invention of gunpowder would be far far more likely and far quicker to happen than in our own timeline. And even a dragon, with all of his might and his ability to breathe fire, would likely lose against a couple of dozen airplanes and against mechanized warfare. So this is basically how realistic dragon kingdoms would actually work. They would form as a way to protect the peasantry from other threats, they would be extractive, they would be ruled by a half-dragon nobility, with the dragon and his next of kin ruling as the undisputed royal family, until the humans are able to fight back decisively, and then their larger numbers would win the battle. And with that said, I say thank you very much for watching and have a nice day.